What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the overall market moving forward. Some very important data coming out for tomorrow that you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I break things down, information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon in just about 12 hours from now. Anyways, for SPY, I just wanted to mention that we have a nice double top like structure. In order for us to turn bearish, you want to see this actually lose 542.5. If we lose that support, there's going to be a risk for more downside. However, there's no guarantee that this double top will lead to more downside. Sometimes there are traps as well. If we end up bouncing above 547, we could actually continue to retest all-time highs, and breaking that opens the doors for new all-time highs as well. We could just continue to pump. So I just want to say that SPY is just range bound. If you look at the last couple of weeks, it's just been going back and forth between supply and demand. And that tells us that so far it looks like with this manipulation that's going on, the best thing to do is just be very patient, especially with lots of data coming out. So I want to break down what could affect the markets going into the week, some very important factors to watch for, and how I think things could end up going out. So I just want to mention that for tomorrow, it's going to be Monday, July 1st, 2024. We're already halfway through the year. We're starting Q3, and this is going to be pretty insane. The first thing worth noting is that 15 minutes and 30 minutes after market open, we have quite a bit of data coming out. So we first have the S&P Global Manufacturing PMI coming out 15 minutes after the market opens. Expect some volatility then at 9:45 a.m. And then at 10 o'clock a.m., we have the ISM manufacturing PMI, employment, new orders, and prices all coming out. New orders and prices are going to be the two most important things because that's going to give us more insights on how the economy is looking, how manufacturing numbers are looking, not to mention inflation, because manufacturing prices do affect that to some large extent. I'll be watching to see what this ends up looking like. Will this data pump the markets? Will it cause a big rug pull? We'll just have to wait and see. I do expect a big move to be coming very soon. I also want to mention that for Tuesday, July 2nd, we also have Jerome Powell giving a speech. So with Powell opening his mouth, this is going to likely cause some more volatility if he says something very significant. So we'll just have to wait and see what Jerome Powell has to say on Tuesday. It's going to cause a very, very big move. He's going to be speaking right as the market opens, which is pretty interesting. Now, don't forget that Wednesdays when we have just some more Fed speakers and very minor data, just like more ISM services data. And then for Thursday, the market's going to be closed for July 4th. Just wanted to remind everyone about that. We have a big holiday coming up, so that's why there's not really too many earnings coming out. And it's going to be a relatively short trading week. The big bank earnings are going to start on July 12th. So the week after this coming Friday, July 12th. We'll have to wait about almost 2 weeks until we start earnings like officially. So that's going to be very important, at least for the way the market moves. And for this week, it's going to be a short trading week. We have Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday of trading. Thursday, the market's going to be closed. And then Friday might be a quiet day since it's going to be the next day after the 4th of July. But there will be trading again on Friday. So all we have for earnings are just a couple of them, at least for Tuesday and Wednesday. Everything else is very, very minor. Now, right now, fear is making up the emotion driving the market because right now people are kind of worried about the market topping. There being a big crash. That is what's making up sentiment. However, just note that momentum is still at extreme greed because we are well above the 125 daily moving average. This is based off our position. The market's still in a very, very high valuation. Even if we do see little dips here and there, we're still highly valued compared to where our moving averages happen to be. And that's actually a good sign of a bull market and a lot of strength that's still prevailing in the markets. So we're still in a bull market. The market is still very strong. That's what that shows us, despite the fact that people are becoming fearful at the current levels. Now, on top of all of this, I just wanted to mention that momentum is still extremely greedy. And simultaneously, we also have the puts and call option positioning also in that very, very similar phase. Because we're seeing a lot of these puts being closed, more calls being opened, people are continuing to buy up the markets, and we're starting to see a lot of positive sentiment. People think that the market may even rally higher, at least to some extent, and we're seeing some institutions continuing to remain bullish. Now, things could shift, and this could happen within a week or two if the market does end up getting a big rejection. So you want to be very mindful of that. We'll see if this shifts. As of right now, we're not seeing that. Volatility is still kind of in the middle, currently around this 13.5 area. So the VIX is still kind of below the 50 daily moving average. There's no sign of a big break on that, at least for now. So what do I see for the market moving forward? What is my prediction? Here's what I think is going to happen. So honestly, guys, the market's very, very tricky. Okay. We have a double top like structure that does suggest that downside is a possibility. However, In order for this to play out, and also you have to account for like the daily chart, which is looking a little bit weaker. But I wouldn't necessarily count solely on that. And here's the reason why. The answer is trickery. The market is very tricky. It's full of manipulation, right? Look at the last couple of weeks, the last 2 weeks. SPY was at 542. We pumped to 550. We come back down to 542. We pump to 550. Then we're back down. It's been doing this for the last 2, 3 weeks. So right now we have a range on SPY. There's a very, very nice range. Okay. So what I see is if we were to pump again, I'll be watching 547 as resistance. If this breaks, look for 550 to be retested. If we manage to break above 547, we could be retesting the all-time high again. If that breaks, we will be very bullish. We could be pushing to the mid 550s if we end up breaking all-time highs. If we're bearish, you need to, excuse me, you need to see confirmation of a break. We need to see SPY lose the neckline at 542.5 way down here. If we lose this, SPY is going to be dipping all the way down to the gap fill possibly. It's about 537 down here. That's going to be a lot more probable if we end up losing 542.5. Now, if I was a fortune teller, I would tell you what will happen, but I personally don't know exactly how this is going to play out because there's so many different possibilities. This could be a double top leading to a big rejection. This could be a trap where we're just kind of range bound, forming like a cup, and then we're eventually going to form a handle and start pushing. So instead of just trying to figure it out, I would say this: let the price action do the talking. Let the price action tell you what's going to happen. If we end up breaking some key resistance, and yes, we could start pumping. If we lose 542.5, we turn bearish. The best thing to do is just wait and see, because as of right now, we are range bound and we have to wait and see what the break is. That's what's going to cause the bigger move. So I would say to just wait for that. For Nvidia, it's the same thing essentially. We're just kind of range bound. We could see a little pump and dump on Nvidia if we were to respect this channel. We could see like a little pump here. It's about 125, then a move back down to 120, just continue to stay in this range. And if we break out of it, then we will turn back to bullish. So it really depends. We're on a bearish trend on Nvidia, kind of downtrending like this. We're gonna likely respect this and slowly approach 120 unless we get a big break. Unless we break to the upside and we break past like 127, then we could turn back to bullish and start pushing for 130, 134, and etc. So the trend on Nvidia is bearish right now, unless we get a big break. And as of right now, we do favor downside just temporarily, unless we get that break very, very soon. So I'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case. Bitcoin's pushing on the 4-hour time frame, but we have to try to break 62,000 to turn back to bullish. That's going to be our 50 EMA. If we break that resistance, we'll be looking for a pump all the way back up towards 63,000. So I'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case for Bitcoin, especially as we have this imbalance to fill. Otherwise, we're just kind of stuck right here, and we'll just have to see how it goes. We have a low right here. We came up. We made a higher low. We're just continuing to push. If we break this, we will continue to pump even more. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. For Tesla, Tesla is in a very, very critical place. Okay. I'm going to tell you this: don't worry about the share price for tomorrow, because on Tuesday, Tesla is going to be giving us their deliveries, and that's going to cause a very big move. So, whatever happens, even if Tesla pumps or dumps, it does not matter. What's going to matter is deliveries and what reaction we get. That's going to determine if Tesla continues to pump or not. So, technically, it does look like it might dip a little bit to about 196, then start to consolidate a bit in the mid 190s. I find that to be the most likely possibility. A little dip is likely going to be coming to Tesla, and then we might start to consolidate. However, there's a big however. When you zoom out like this, okay, you can see we have a very, very nice looking inverse head and shoulders. I would say this: if we do kind of pump here and we approach this resistance, we could reject and start dipping a little bit again and then trying to bounce, because this could be forming a very symmetrical structure. So see how we have this top here, very similar to the top right here. And then how we basically were down here before this ended up coming. So we might be making a move down like that before we try to pump even more. So if this were to be symmetrical, you guys could see how we might dump and then pump. That's a possibility on Tesla. I don't know for sure, guys. It depends on deliveries. However, whether we get a little dump or not, Tesla still looks very, very bullish overall. So if we do dump to 180 after deliveries, Tesla could still pump to the 220 plus area later on. If we don't if we don't dump, excuse me, then we could just go straight up to 220 from here. We will just have to wait and see. I'm not going to make any promises. It depends on Tesla's deliveries and what reaction we get. So we'll be very patient and we'll see how things at least progress from here. What do I think is going to play out? Honestly, it depends on deliveries. I think that Tesla may dip a little bit tomorrow to the mid 190s. Then deliveries will cause either a massive pump or a dump. We just have to wait and see. For the QQQ, I'm seeing something very, very similar to SPY. We're also range bound on the QQQ. Notice that we basically haven't really lost structure right here, and we're just getting tighter and tighter. So the triple Q, we have this resistance that's currently around this The most important resistance is 484. If we could break 484 on the QQQ, we're going to be pushing very, very nicely, and we could be testing all-time highs again. We came very close to doing that on Friday. If we fail to break 484 and we just continue to sink, watch key support at 475. If we close below that or lose that, there could be a bigger dip coming all the way down to 468. So on the QQQ, if we lose this mid 470 area, which is where we have this low here, we're going to be dipping all the way down to much lower levels to fill our gap at 468. If we break 484, we're going to be looking for a big pump all the way towards the all-time highs. What am I going to do? Like I said about SPY, wait and see. Give this the time it needs, be very, very patient, and we'll see what that ends up leading to. That's going to be pivotal for how things end up developing. For Aapl, Aapl is just kind of range trading right here as well. We have this resistance currently around this 216 to 217 area. Then we have this support over here all the way down to about 206. I think that Aapl is getting tighter and tighter, and I think that we're actually forming a little wedge like this. So I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up doing something very similar to just continuing to consolidate. Aapl might kind of retest this support and just continue to trade sideways for the time being and remain range bound. I'm going to give this some time just to see how this ends up panning out. I would say the best move to do is just be patient on Aapl, let it get tighter, and then we'll be watching for a really big break. If we end up losing our key supports and we end up breaking below 210, I'll be looking at 207. If we break past 216, we'll be looking for a test of all-time highs. As of right now, it's getting tighter and tighter, so we'll see which way Aapl ends up breaking. As of right now, it's just range bound, so give it a little bit more time. So for a lot of the market, we just have to be very patient because the market's just seeing a lot of consolidation. We're seeing a lot of stocks like SPY that are range bound. So give the market time and we'll see how things develop from here. Anyways, I will talk more about other tickers very, very quickly now. So for Palantir, we pumped very nicely to 25.5, but now resistance is getting kind of tougher, but it's holding up relatively well, especially compared to the market. To me, it does look like it might actually dip a little bit to retest about 25 or so, then bounce and continue to consolidate. I find that to be the most likely possibility. For Supermicro, there's a possible head and shoulders like structure. We have like a left shoulder here. We have a head, and then we have like a right shoulder. If we lose support all the way down here around this 820 area, we could be dipping all the way down towards about 800, then 780. And if we end up holding support and we bounce off 800, we'll be looking for a rebound. With the head and shoulders forming, Supermicro is showing some weakness. So I do think the odds favor us going all the way down to about 800. But just to be safe, we'll see if that ends up being the case. Be very, very patient. For Rivian, we're kind of dipping a little bit. I am seeing a little bit of weakness here. There's a good chance it might be retesting 12.5 tomorrow. If we hold that, we could be looking for a bounce. If we lose that, we'll be dipping down to 11.35. So look for 12.5, see if we bounce or not. That's the most likely possibility for a test for tomorrow. For SoFi, we pumped all the way up towards our target, 6.65. We're kind of rejecting here. I think it's going to dip a little bit lower to about 6.5. If we hold this, look for a big bounce and a continuation higher to this imbalance. We have this previous support becoming resistance at 6.7. And if we end up losing support at 6.5, we'll be looking for a bigger dip. Now, this does have a nice inverse head and shoulders on SoFi, so it's looking a little bit more bullish, technically speaking, but it might dip and then bounce is the most likely possibility. So I'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case, especially as we approach this previous breakout area. So that's going to be very important. I think a dip and a bounce is the most likely possibility, so we'll see if that ends up being the case. For the IWM Russell 2000, we have a nice kind of like sideways structure right over here. If we end up dipping lower, we'll be dipping back down to 201. We'll see if we get a bounce or not. But overall, we're just kind of range bound. We'll just have to see how things kind of develop over here. Now, the IWM has a nice structure. If we do end up losing 201, we'll be dipping back down towards about 199. If we bounce here, we'll be looking for a big push all the way up to about 206. I would say that right now, the IWM Russell 2000 has a lot of potential for the year, especially the small caps. But for the short term, I think that we're just range bound. I think that it's going to dip a little bit and retest 201. If we get a big bounce off 201, we're going to be pushing back up higher towards 206. And if we lose 201, we're going to be dipping back down. I think that's the most likely possibility. So once again, guys, I think the Russell has a lot of potential for the year, but for the short term, there might be a little dip coming. We'll see if we get a bounce or not. For AMD, it's also very range bound. We've been getting rejected off this 166 area. We keep getting bought up around 158. I think that we could kind of pop and then drop and then end up retesting 160 and just continue to consolidate right here. So we'll be watching to see if we get a big bounce or not. So this consolidation trend is very, very probable. We'll see if that holds or not. So I'll be very patient with that. For ARM is kind of rejecting a bit. If we end up losing support around 163, we'll be looking for a dip towards 157. If we hold 163, we could try to bounce. So I am seeing a little bit of weakness here. We could, it really depends if we hold our 20 EMA or not. Just watch that as a key support. We're kind of riding this for now. So do we bounce off 163 or do we lose it? I'll be watching for that going into tomorrow. For Coinbase, we could be forming a nice little flag here. So it's looking pretty decent to me. I'm seeing a nice little trend that's forming. And we also have this trend line that's acting as our support. So I think what's going to happen is this. Let me just redraw this for 1 second. I think that there's a very, very good chance that coin is going to continue to do this. We're going to try to ride this trend line of support and we might get a retest tomorrow. So a little dip. Then we could bounce and just continue to kind of uptrend from here, especially as Bitcoin is trying to bounce. So look for a little dip and bounce. It's the most likely possibility. If we lose the support, if we end up breaking through this trend line, then there's going to be a risk of this dipping much lower. So make sure you watch that carefully. If we lose this trend line, we're going to be dipping back down towards the lower 200s. Otherwise, we're just kind of ranging trading in this channel. So it might dip here and just continue to consolidate. That's the most likely possibility. For Amazon, I see 192.3 being tested. If we lose this, we're dipping down to 188. If we hold this, we're going to be rebounding to 195. I do see a risk of downside, but watch 192. We'll see if we get a bounce or not. I think that's going to be tested tomorrow. We will see if that ends up holding or not. So I'll be very, very patient with that. For Meta, I just wanted to mention that Meta is also dipping. Watch 504 is key support. If we lose this, we'll be dipping all the way down towards 498. If we hold this, we'll be trying to rebound. I am seeing some weakness here, so it does look more likely like it's going to dip to about 497. So just be careful with Meta just to be safe. For Microsoft finally lost its 20 EMA. So now we're going to be testing our 50 EMA at 445. If we bounce off 445, look for a retest of 450. If we lose 445, we're going to be dipping all the way down towards 436. So watch this. A big test is coming on Microsoft. I think we're going to dip a little bit more to 445 and see if we get a bounce or not. Google dipped all the way down to about 183. We kind of retested 184's resistance. We're looking a little bit weak on the 4 hours, so I do see a risk of downside. I think it's going to rebound a bit tomorrow. Retest previous resistance becoming support, previous support becoming resistance, around 185. Look for a retest of 185, which is where we have this imbalance, and see if we get a rejection. If we do get that rejection, we'll be dipping right back down. So look for a little bounce to 185 and then see if we get a big rejection or not. If we get that rejection, we'll be dipping all the way down to about 181. If we break past 185, we could try to rebound. So we'll look for a retest of 185 and see if we get a rejection. I'll be watching that very, very carefully. For GameStop, I like the setup a little bit on GameStop. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders. We'll see if this plays out or not. I want to see GameStop close above at least 25.5. If we do so, there's going to be some potential for this to try to bounce towards 28. There's an inverse head and shoulders. I'm seeing some upside potential in GameStop. Same thing on AMC. We're kind of turning on the 4 hour. We need to see AMC try to break past 5. If we break that, we're going to be looking for a rally back up to 5.5. There's a little bit of potential in AMC and GameStop, so I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing. GJT looking a little bit more bearish on the 4 hour. We got a nice test of this resistance only to get a big rejection. So I think we're going to be dipping all the way down towards 29 over the next few days. So I see some weakness on that. The VIX tried to bounce only to reject and still kind of trading sideways around this 12.4 area. But just know the VIX loves to bounce around this 11.5 to 12 area. So it's still kind of consolidating. The VIX has been consolidating in this low level for now. We're going to see if we get a bounce or not, but there's no sign of a breakout. We haven't even broken the 4 hour 200 EMA. We need to break past 13.3 to start breaking out. There's no sign of that. So as of right now, the VIX is consolidating, showing signs that the market's indecisive. The 10-year is still kind of stuck. We'll see how this moves on Tuesday when Jerome Powell starts his speech. That's going to have a big effect on the yields and also the overall markets, especially on the equity side. And then finally, we have the dollar index. This is just kind of consolidating right now. If we break past 106, look for a bigger push all the way up towards 106.5. If we do push higher in the dollar, this could cause downside in the markets. If we lose 105.6, we're going to dip. As of right now, if you look at it, it's just trading sideways. Look at this. It's just been going back and forth and back and forth. So I'm going to wait and see which way we break. That's going to have a big effect on the markets. So honestly, guys, I know you don't want to hear this, but for now, the market's kind of indecisive. We're just waiting to see which way we break to determine what the bigger move is going to be. And for the last few weeks, we've been just range bound. So I would tell you this, just wait and see which way we break. That'll give us the big answer whether or not we're about to get a big rug pull. If SPY loses 542.5, we turn bearish. If we break past 547, there's upside potential. If you break all-time highs, we're going to be pushing all the way up to the mid 550s. So I'm going to wait and see. I know it's not what people are used to me saying, as I typically give you guys predictions, but I think that's the best thing for me to typically say when you have something like this that's going on. So just wait for some data, wait for Jerome Powell's speech, whatever it is, and we'll see which way the market goes. Otherwise, we're just range bound. All right. with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for listening. Please have a great day, guys, and I will see you guys very soon tomorrow before the market opens. Have a great Sunday, and peace out.